Okay guys, for this video we're going to trim the lid and make a finial for the coffee pot. So here's an already trimmed example. You can see that the lid is just a really shallow dome and there's no strong lines between the top of the lid and the underside of the finial here, and then we're going to have like two rings. And a slight dome at the top. So that's what we're aiming for. Okay, so one really important consideration is dryness. So how hard should the pot be when you go to trim? So one way to think about that is when you press on the piece, does it give under your finger or not? If it gives just a little bit, if you press pretty hard, that's a good leather hard. If you feel any moisture coming off the piece, or if it's like sticky or wet or soft in any way, you really want to wait. Like trimming wet is a terrible idea. So you want good leather hard lid for trimming, and especially evenly leather hard. So what I do is I make my pots, I let them sit out for a while till I can handle them, and then I put them in a damp box and let them get evenly dry or evenly wet throughout. Okay, so I'm setting the calipers to exactly the diameter of the opening for the inset lid here, and I'm going to trim the lid to this exact diameter, and that will allow the lid to fit down inside this opening. So I'm just going to remove enough material here so that the lid can fit down into the opening of the pot. There we go. And it dropped right down in perfect fit. So that's a really good method. If you trim your lids to fit, they'll always fit. What more is there to say? One thing that I think is very important when you're starting to trim is you want to feel where the thicknesses are, right? Like the inside of this lid is fairly flat, which means all of the material that's really above this line here can all be removed. It's really important to know what you can take away. And if you really kind of investigate and check it all out before you start trimming, you'll know a little bit more about that. Okay guys, so the first step is I'm going to remove some of the material here and try and get the sort of rim, the extra wide rim next to the gallery, to be in a line with the top of the lid. So as always, I'm going to have my elbows down on my legs, my finger touching the pot, my thumb touching the tool so that I'm braced across my body. I'm going to just do a little bit of leveling here. So I'm going to just remove a little bit of it by letting this tool, just like we did in the foot, by letting this tool float over the pot and let the high spots of the pot come around and get removed. Okay. Always bracing across my body so my elbows are connected through my hands. And I'm just basically trying to get a little cylinder standing in the center here to begin making the finial. And since the finial is obviously wider at the top and then undercut underneath, I'm going to start to make that shape. Undercutting the finial. Same thing, just turning the tool. There's our little cylinder standing in the center. Now I've still got lots of extra material here to remove. So I'm going to cut this a little deeper now. So I'm going to switch over to my wide blade tool and just kind of blend these two surfaces into one. Right now in my work, I'm really interested in these smooth sort of partial arcs. So I want this shape and this shape to be continuous, and I don't really want the lid to be like its own architecture. I want this to be one line, basically. So I'm just going to trim it so that it is. So I'm just removing all the material that's in the way of that. And I want the finial to be slightly domed on top. So that means I have to remove a little bit of this outer edge to get it to be a curve. Okay. So this tool is basically just a sharpened piece of metal that has a curved shape, and I'm going to use it to trim under the finial. So you can see how this is a really gradual curve here. I'm going to try and create that curve with this tool. Do you see how well that fits right in there? So that's the idea. You want to try and match the tool to the job. So I'm just going to let this ride on top of the lid and just bring it in and under the lid. And I'm just gradually reducing the diameter of this sort of stem that the top of the finial is resting on. Okay, so I think now is a good time to just pop this lid off and just kind of check thicknesses and clean up the gallery and the edge of the lid. So I'm going to bring this down a little bit, and I'm going to just trim up the edge here a little bit also, like that. There we go. So that's a nice finished thickness. Okay. So I'm going to take a minute with the trimming tool and just clean this up. So I'm going to use my widest bladed tool to start with, and then I'll actually switch over to my sheet metal rib. So what I'm trying to do here is to make the curve happen as gradually as possible, with no like spots that you can recognize as a change in direction. I want the curve to be very continuous. Okay, this isn't a rule for pottery making, this is just what I'm working on with my work. So it's important to realize the sort of distinction there. You can put lines in here, you can put bands, you can do anything you want, but I'm trying to make a clean transition or a clean line, so that's why I'm doing this extra bit of trimming. So now I'm going to switch over to my sheet metal rib, and I'm just going to bend it slightly and hold the rib at maybe 45 degrees or so, or even a little bit more, maybe like almost 90 degrees, and have it be like a scraping tool. And you can see how that smooths out all of the trimming lines and also throwing marks that I didn't get to. One good way to use this technique is to bend the rib slightly while you're trimming. So if you like match the angle and then cup the rib slightly like that, you kind of turn it into a trimming tool. And it works really, really well for removing kind of points in a profile that you're not happy with. See, I've got it kind of like at a scraping angle, and then I pick it up and there's all that material that was in the way of that nice smooth line. See how it pulls all those curls up? It's very much like how a wood turning chisel removes material, I think. And instead of using the rib as a trimming tool, now I'm going to use the rib as a kind of a polishing tool, or more like a rib normally would be used. So I'm just going to let it match the curve of the pot and just press it into the pot, and it's going to kind of fill those little voids that I created using the rib as a trimming tool. Okay guys, thanks for watching my lid trimming video. You can see that we have the lid fits pretty well, drops right down into the gallery, and we have nice smooth transitions in the contour on the side of the pot and also on the top. So again, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one for the handle and the spout.